Oke, baik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Jumpa lagi teman-teman di minggu ke-9. Hari ini kita berdiskusi tentang environment, tool, materials, and activities for computer assisted language learning. Di diskusi kali ini ada beberapa hal yang akan kita diskusikan, terutama basically environments, tools, materials, and activities for computer assisted language learning in your context basically. So hoping that it will be able to help you to get some understanding on how we set up the environments, tools, materials, and activities for our CALL classes. Before we start the program, let's open our class today by praying together. Semoga ilmu yang kita dapatkan manfaat dan berkah, selalu sehat semuanya, dan lancar segala aktivitasnya. Al-Fatihah. Oke, baik. Terima kasih. Kita mulai diskusinya. Di slide yang kedua, saya menyebutkan ada 4 dimensions of CALL yang kita bisa coba, yaitu environment, tool, materials, and activities. Pada dasarnya keempatnya itu merupakan satu proses yang paralel, jadi maaf, ini proses yang linear, jadi satu diikuti yang kedua dan ketiga dan keempat. Yang pertama Anda observing CALL environments, you observe what kind of CALL environments you have in your context. After that, you see like a tools which is quite familiar with, and you think that it will be able to improve the students' abilities. And then you choose relevant CALL materials, and then the last one is designing. After you select the tools and choose the relevant materials, you design and undertake CALL activities. So basically today's meeting is a bit explorative and we will start one by one. Yang pertama adalah environments. Dua pertanyaan yang paling sering muncul adalah what environments are available for the users, I mean the teachers and the learners, and how those environments impact the nature of interactions and learning process in your context. So while you observe your environment, several things which you should pay attention are, first, you see what kind of environments are available, and then second one, you need to adapt to environments you are in. Ada beberapa contoh environments dari mulai yang very basic physical face-to-face settings semacam classrooms, computer center and language labs, libraries, cafes, and public spaces, houses, atau mungkin yang sudah network based such as mobile device or your internet connections. Jadi teachers should adapt environments they are in. The classroom, if you have a classroom, or the classroom have a chalkboard, the whiteboard or interactive whiteboard, do you have a projectors, do you have something to help you with your CALL setting? If you have a computer center and language labs, are there general purpose computer stations available? Are there headsets, microphones for speaking, audio recorders for speaking and listening stations? If your context is libraries, cafes, and public spaces, are there any free wireless networks available for you? If you have, set your security and network profile as a public, not a private one, because it's quite dangerous to do something like sharing your network identity with others in public settings. If you have a houses, what sort of device, application, and network your students have. Coronavirus 19 pandemics, and this is quite the ideal setting of what if your students, you can imagine that if your students study at their homes with their homes and mobile device and internet, so what kind of devices are available for them? Are they only have like a desktop, or they have like something like handphone, gadgets like tablets, or conversely they only have a phone and a tablet but they don't have a computer or laptop? The problem with the mobile device is, especially if you have a like distance learning process like what we are having today, is that there are so many distractions which may hamper the process of learning through the gadgets. So you need to pay attention to these things. Next, basically I categorize CALL environments into two types. offline, which is face-to-face setting, like you have your own classroom, and an online one in which you meet with your students digitally or virtually through the CMC or something like LMS and so on. The questions is the question which we need to think about is, which one do you like more? If you have this type of offline and online, which one do you prefer for your call teachings? And do you think online environment of ESL, EFL teaching is authentic or not? We know that basically face-to-face physical meeting is the authentic one, but then when we consider about the online environments of ESL or EFL teaching, is it authentic or not? If yes, why it's authentic? And if no, why? And how do you think we can do to improve the authenticity of this kind of environment? Next, Egbert and Hansen Smith, in their books, wrote that World Wide Web, or just simply we call it web, is a form of CAI environments. As I mentioned, like a mobile devices is part of the environment. But then it's similar to other type of environments. It has advantages and disadvantages. I will go to that with disadvantages of web first. This is what Hubbard suggests. Among the disadvantages of webs are, it is sometimes not easy to read because the text space is not as easy as physical materials you have in your paper format. There are some settings which might change depending on the gadgets, depending on the networks, such as the font, the color of the font, the background choice, whether this is probably convenient for some people and not really convenient for others. Sometimes servers might be busy, especially if you have like something like a very advanced one which you meet the students virtually in real time using, for example, like Google Hangout or Google Meet or Zoom, something like that. Basically the transfer of the speed transfer might be influenced, especially if the server is busy. There will be some problems. It is especially if you use HTTP hypertext transfer protocol, like most pages, HTTP, www, and something like that. If you click something or you move to another page, so you need to request access to the original server. If the server is busy, you might see the noticeable delay. And in some modern browser, they keep the church's versions of pages, but then not many browser have this kind of things. So it might be a bit difficult for some websites. And if the server is down, it may cause frustrations. And sometimes the problem is about the amount of available materials. There are excessively huge number of available materials. Then the problem is how we select which one is available and relevant to our study and which one is not. So it might be hard to find something you're really looking for in the internet, but you can do it like some tweaks using Google Advanced Search, for example. But then it might still needs your ability to regulate these things, and it might need your ability to do some extra things with this. And the next one is the web is dynamic and often unpredictable. There are changes. Usually, the books, the revisions of a book might might need times like a year or more, or even some books they probably just publish a new editions after several few years. But then with the internet, the author can directly edit their works, especially something like written materials in the internet. So they can edit it at any time. So there will be many revisions, and it's always dynamics and unpredictable. We know that we basically have some churches versions, like when you go to using Wayback Machine in archive.org, www.archive.org, you can try that one. But then sometimes it's not available on that things. It's not always available. So sometimes we need, like, you might be surprised if you find something in Wikipedia today, the information, certain information, and a week later or a month later, the information has changed, radically changed into something new. So this is part of the disadvantages of the web. For the advantages, despite the disadvantages, there are some good reasons for doing informations and using using informations from the web as an environment. For example, during the global pandemic like this one, this global pandemic, this is easier because you can access it anytime and anywhere. For at least many people, and for most people, they can access internet. I'm pretty sure that many of us can access internet, although the speed might differ one by one. And there are an enormously a huge amount of free materials, although there are excessive numbers of materials, but also there are many of them are free, not all are paid. And the material can be found that is current. You can tweak your Google search so you can find something which is quite up to date, every few days ago, published few months ago, and published this year, and so on. So this is something which is quite important and helpful to you. And there is a chance to publish your work, although you do not have like relations with the real publications material publishers. It might take some time for you to manage, deal with the real publisher, big publisher. But then you can self-publish it, for example, like using, if you have academia.edu or researchgate.net, or if you have something, other platform to share your ideas, to publish your ideas. You don't need the help of the big publishers. In addition to the big publisher, there are so many journals online, and you can contact them directly, and it will be easier rather than waiting for a big publisher. A cultural window is open through the large amount of authentic material readily available for many languages. And there are many authentic materials, but then it depends on your context and how you tweak these things. So you still need extra ability to select which materials are quite good for you, quite relevant and authentic for your context. And the last one is the meaning technologies such as transcript, dictionaries, and translators, online translators, such as online transcripts, dictionaries, and translators exist in the internet to aid comprehensions of your materials. Next, if you like the use of internet, some researchers also pointed out the paradox of internet use in learning. Basically, I mentioned here like Brander 2005, Egbert and Petrie, and Rabi in 2005, in book CRL Research Perspective books. The paradox is here. The culture determines one's learning. When you learn about something, usually culture influence many things on how you learn. But the problem is the online environment reaches social dimensions. Let me elaborate this one. Let me elaborate it. The problem is, let me elaborate it. Culture determines your learnings. When you want to learn, you want to decode or encode meanings, or you want to interact with others, you are culturally and socially embedded in the cultures. So your knowledge is socially and culturally embedded. This is if you follow the idea of sociocultural theory, which I use in my PhD thesis. So basically, you cannot go anywhere without the influence of culture. If you want to study something, your culture and the culture of the context of the places which you have might influence how you manage these things. But the problem is the online environment reduces social dimensions because it's not constricted. It's not constricted with geographically. In an online setting, you might find that your classmates are coming from very different contexts. For example, one of you may come from Java, one of others may come from Kalimantan, Borneo, Sulawesi, and other places across Indonesia. So this is a quick example on how the online environments are not constrained geographically. So because you do it in an online way, there are several cultural competency which are not really used in these settings, such as the people's identity, your race, your gender, your social class, your accent, speaking accents are hidden. It's not known well in the text-based online environments, especially if you just do something like reading and writing activities. You might not see it if you do not interact directly. So the cultural competency is less important. And also, it's easier to overcome social inhibitions and injustice in the communication process because we do not worry about the cultural issues. So you do not worry about the social inhibitions and social injustice in your process of communications. So that's the problems, that your learning is influenced by culture, but the online environment reaches the social dimension or the cultural dimensions. Next one is tool. The main questions which I have in my mind is what tools are available for the users, teachers, and learners. Think about your context. What kind of tools are available for your users and also for the teacher and learner in your context? Do you have like resources with the internet, or do you have like physical resources for your CLL? Do you have software or games to help your students, offline games or offline software or online? Do you have access to it? And something like that you need to keep in mind. But then there are several online CALL tools which I want to introduce to you. For example, the students learning resources such as dictionary, you can find dictionaries online, and other resources, translator, Google Translate. My favorite dictionaries, online dictionaries, are Longman Dictionary of Contemporary English. It's quite concise, but then not very brief, but then it's quite complete, but then a little bit concise. So this is one of my favorite one. And in addition to LDOC online, Longman Dictionary of Contemporary English online, I also use Oxford Dictionary online. You also can find automated meaning technologies such as machine translations using translator, Google Translate, and pop-up online dictionaries like Chrome extensions, or you can find any other online. Um, you can also find online dictionaries in the internet, lexical tools like Tom Cupp's Compiant Lexical Tutor, lextutor.ca. This is quite good. I have tried this one. And media players, you can download many types of media players to help you in comprehending meanings, such as some software has the ability to show or even automatically produce captions like YouTube. Some others have ability to adjust playback speed if you want to play listening sections and jumping, fast forward, fast revert, something like that. And there are many tools for collaboration and learning production on the web, such as Google Docs and your LMS, the authoring tools including Hot Potatoes and so on. This is just a very brief examples. There are many others which you can try, which is quite good to our study. LEMI 2012 discuss the relationship of CALL tools and modes and learning objectives. For example, let me mention that the browsers, the modes is multiple modes with the browsers, and you can access to authentic materials depending on the learning objectives facilitated. See that the relations here between the tools and your learning objectives And more generally to your curriculum should have like the tools and your learning objectives, and the syllabus should have like strong relationships. If you want to learn on to produce productive text-based activities, so you bring your students to study word processor with a written text mode. If you want your students to produce image-based activities, you might find that photo editing software or video editing software are quite important for you. And for reflective activities, for example, if you want to revisit tutorial sessions, maybe automatic recording and screen capture tools like this one, I use OBS Studio, is quite important for you. Next, other examples of modality relationships in CLL including hot buttons, asynchronous sending and receiving, using written work. You can do the peer feedback using Google Docs, for example, meta commenting with the extended reflective commentary, synchronous messaging tools like what we do have, like the synchronous one like Facebook and so on, your social media, your uh, WhatsApp is kind of typically synchronous messaging tools. You have VoIP and voice over internet, and for training, oral communication and interaction, collaborative work and feedback, and webcam based. So further, I suggest you to read these two books, particularly Chappell and Sauro in 2017 and Tarsani. This is quite new books, and I believe that the Chappell and Sauro's Handbook of Technology and Second Language Teaching and Learning discuss several chapters which discuss technologies to teach various skills and aspects of second language learning. Uh, this is the language is for intermediate and advanced learner, but this is quite good introductions to what kind of technologies are available for your options. Torsani 2016 CLL Teacher Education. I suggest you read as Appendix C for introduction on reading on some introductory reading on some important CLL tools and its applications. Also, the appendix summarize, describe some usage and sample of activities to teach. And I have some more about the resources in the previous week. I have uploaded in our Google Classroom if you want to check that one. Next, the third one is the materials. What materials are available for the users, for you and your students? There are a huge number of materials are available in the internet, and many of them are free. I'm selecting some materials, free materials to access for you and quite authentic. We divide it into authentic language materials and also dedicated language materials. And the last category is the collecting and curating materials, is more specifically for advanced students. For the authentic language materials, you can go to general news sites like CNN, PBS, New York Times, Fox News, and many others. You can find scripts. Some websites include scripts and audios and videos together, so you can download it and help use it for your study. You can also use podcasts like Scientific American podcasts and many news and entertainment sites. They usually have podcasts. And the largest video banks, YouTube. This is good examples of authentic language materials. The Google News, script and transcript using simply transcriptions, and also eslnotes.com. They provide transcript for movies and TV shows. Especially the simplyscripts.com. They provide transcript for TV shows until the recent one. Dedicated language material and exercise. The second one is dedicated language materials and exercise. The tutorial software on web like Randall's Cyber Listening Lab, eslab.com. This is quite good. ESL tutorial software, ESL podcast like eslpod.com. My favorite one is the podbean.com, but you can also try ESL podcast using eslpod.com. Commercial source site like Google Global English, EF English Live, and there are many also major publishers increasingly have websites to complement their books. like Longman. If you have connections to it, it has a Pearson. Longman Pearson has a PearsonELT.com, and there are many sources available, especially to accompany the textbook written by the authors, and also online learning communities and social networks such italki.com. For more advanced students, you can use collecting, tagging, and curating materials, such as especially if you want to find authentic materials. So some of them can be automated if you have a Google search functions, especially with the Google Advanced Search. You can find and you can tweak your search so you can find your result for particular language level of the students. If you want to create curating TED talks for advanced listening classes, for example, you can see web.stanford.edu, and there are many places, there are many institutions providing a curation creating process. Okay, next, the last one is the activities. The question will be what activities are available for the users, the teachers, and also the learners. This is some examples, which is this is some examples shown in. This is some examples. This is some example given by Hubbard, like finding content for projects, both individual and group project. You can use iteslg.org, and then to balance. The problem is you need to balance the seeking process and the production time process with your language learning and practice time. Second, searching for ideas and lesson plans for internet, web, and class activities using Google, TEFL.net, ETESLG.com, ETESLG.org, and so on. This is particularly one activities which I want you to do after these sessions. 3. Making resource pages for specific classes. You can use the website designer, website blogs, or class wiki. So if you use websites, you might need software to create your websites, to produce your websites. And sending your students on a web quest. Search and study online journals like ELT journals. Make or use websites with useful links. You can go to 2 examples here are Claire Bredin-Siskind. I use this one as a resource for our classes, and also Deborah Haley. Deborah Haley is one of the lecturer in University of Oregon in the past, and I took an online class from Oregon Uni with Deborah Haley. And this have examples. These are examples CLL activities which you can take and use. Note that there are several notes which I want you to share. You pay attention. For example, first, most CLL activities nowadays take place through computer and mobile devices. So although CLL can be taught using offline software in our class and our language lab, but most people nowadays take place through computer. Most CLL activities nowadays take place through computers and mobile devices. And recently, there are many teachers which promote BYOD, bring your own device. So you bring your own laptop, you bring your own smartphones, and so on. And especially regarding the coronavirus pandemic at the moment. So we see that there is a really huge trends on how the use of students' computers and mobile devices are used to support their own study. The problem with the use of the computers and the students' own computers and mobile devices there are many potential problems like distractions. So you need to anticipate the potential problems, and you need to design CLL activities based on the curriculum. like what we do the first for the tool, what we do before with the tool. It is also important to design your CLL activities and make sure that it is based on the curriculum. Hubbard adds some tips to undertake CLL activities, including you need to be prepared, very prepared, and you know the objective or your lessons, you know what you want to achieve, and you need to ensure that your students are trained in the activity to achieve the objectives. When you ask your students to do Google Docs, to do peer feedback using Google Docs, and invite you into the collaborator, so there will be two students working together plus you to see and achieve, to observe, to supervise their project. So you need to make sure that students are familiar with the Google Docs and they know how to do like making a peer feedback to each other and you. If you cannot make a simulations, probably for certain limitations, you can find examples and suggest it to the students and they can use it as a template. You can provide templates, you can find example online on how to do invitations to invite teachers and so on. And CLL depends on the students' readiness. CLL activities depend on students' readiness and motivations. The fourth one is you need to build some flexibility. We need to understand that the students' ability in accessing those online resources are different. Their contexts are different. Probably some people have like very high-speed internet access, but some others do not. If they live in very remote area, so you need to build some flexibility into the assignment or activity. You need to expect that not many people will be able to achieve what you expect to achieve if it is too high, if the level is too advanced. So you need to expect if something isn't working well as expected, and you need to expect although something, if something is not ready or something is not working, you need to make sure that the task can still go on. So don't set your standard too high. You need to be able to keep in your mind that the context of the students might be different. Recommended reading is the old one, Warshauer and Kern, 2000, Network-Based Language Teaching Concept and Practice. This is among the early books discussing CLL activities and extensively read by many people. I particularly pay attention. Please pay attention. Please pay attention, particularly on chapter 10, in which Warshauer discussed the network-based language teaching. Next, this is our task for today's meeting. After you study this video, I want you to check the PDF which I sent you and also do several things, several tasks to do. First, the first task is descriptions, about 50 words. I want you to think about the environment you are currently residing. It can be your home, if you stay at home. It can be your hometown. It can be a bigger, like your hometown. It can be your rent house if you are in other places. It can be your pondok pesantren if you are currently staying in pondok pesantren. Describe the type of environment you are residing and imagine that this is your context of your ESL, EFL teaching. So how would you use your environment as a context for your ESL, EFL teaching? Describe it briefly, about 50 words to describe this one. The second task is the analysis process. It's about 100 to 150 words. This activity is adapted from Hubbard 2019 in Stanford. I want you to search for one ESL or EFL lesson plan on the internet, and you need to use your favorite search engine like Google, Bing, and so on, and try to use keywords which include which include, like, for example, ESL argumentative writing lesson plan, or EFL drama lesson plan, EFL plot, and so on, something like that. Be specific with your lesson plan. Check your lesson plan, the downloaded lesson plan, especially the tools, materials, and activities. Note ways you might use the lesson plan in your teaching context. Note ways you might use the lesson plan in your teaching context. And do you think these tools, materials, and activities are consistent or relevant with the context you choose? Whether it's applicable in and doable to be doable in your context of environment you choose? And is there anything you could do or change to improve the lesson plan, to improve the tools, materials, and activities so they can be applied in your context? And then you write your descriptions, short descriptions, and review in a doc and attach the downloaded lesson plan to it. And then submit it via Google Classroom. Next, I want you to participate in the class discussions by posting a questions or posting an answer to my question or your classmate questions. So you can basically post the questions in the discussion board and ask your friend to answer your questions, or we will answer it together. So you can either give a questions or give an answer to the questions. Thank you so much for your participations. Let me know if you have any questions. Contact me through email or via. I will see you again then in the next sessions. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.